West Coast and rap's premier artist, and very glad to get him because everybody's been telling me for a long time when I have my unique access channel that I should get him on there. Without further ado, we're bringing in the great Mack 10.
What's up, homie? How you doing?
Man, Mack, it's good to see you, man.
You guys get together, maybe do another Westside Connection, have a conversation.
Like I said earlier, I fuck with who fuck with me. You dig? That's where I'm at with it. If you fuck with me, I fuck with you. I had nights where I had 4 and 5 shows going in one night in different states.
Just as a
Everything started with a quiet Instagram story, deleted minutes later, and what came after caught everyone off guard. For years, the hip-hop world has looked at Mack 10 as a cautionary tale, a shadow of Ice Cube's empire. But the reality of his disappearance from the charts is far more calculated and complex than a simple beef. In the clip we just saw, you hear the hesitation in his voice when Westside Connection is mentioned. It's a wound that hasn't fully healed, even decades later. Mack 10 wasn't just a sidekick, he was a foundational pillar of a movement that defined West Coast dominance. From 1995 to 1998, he wasn't just rapping, he was moving units at a pace that rivaled the biggest names in the industry, reportedly clearing 11 million records. But while the world saw gold plaques, the internal structure of his life was beginning to fracture. People often point to a single moment of fallout, but a career collapse of this magnitude is usually a slow-motion car crash. It's a combination of personal loyalty clashing with business and a private life that was about to become very public very fast. The question isn't just why he stopped making hits, it's why one of the most powerful enforcers in rap history suddenly found himself standing alone.
promoter,
Just as a
money
promoter.
Five
Yeah, like I
cities.
might have had.
Lots of Wayne shows.
I did a lot of Wayne shows.
It's good business to be in.
I did a lot of Snoop shows.
Good business to be in. I heard Snoop's prices shot up recently.
Yeah.
Ever be a world in which you would ever make up with Mack 10 and do another Westside Connection album?
I don't know. Anybody could try to do it, but you got to get good at it in order for it to be, and you got to be willing. You got to have enough to lose.
What happened next was a masterclass in how fast a legacy can be dismantled when the powers that be decide the narrative has shifted. While Ice Cube was transitioning into a Hollywood mogul, Mack 10 was reportedly navigating a minefield of domestic turmoil that the public was only starting to glimpse. The fallout with Cube wasn't just a professional disagreement, it was a deep personal severance that left Mack without his most powerful ally. Allegedly, this vacuum of support made him vulnerable when the media began reporting on his messy divorce from T-Boss of TLC. When a superstar couple splits, the public usually picks a side, and in this case, the headlines were reportedly devastating to Mack's brand. Sources speculate that the legal paperwork filed during this era contained accusations that were so heavy they acted as a silent blacklist within the industry. We're talking about a man who was once the West Coast enforcer, now finding that his phone wasn't ringing for the same reasons it used to. It's one thing to have beef with a rival rapper. It's another thing entirely to have the court of public opinion turn against you during a high-profile domestic dispute. But to understand how he reached this breaking point, we have to look at the specific catalyst, the brother-in-law incident. This wasn't just a random argument, it was a collision of street ethics and family ties that forced Ice Cube to make a choice no one ever wants to make.
Extremely honored to have an absolute West Coast icon, Mack 10 in the building. How you doing, man?
Can't complain, bro. What's happening with it?
Having a good time. I'm happy to have you in here.
Thanks. Glad you dig. That's where I'm at with it. If you fuck with me, I fuck with you because that's a reflection of who I am. You know what I'm saying? I don't listen to nobody's music and say, oh, I'm going to go make a record like that. Ooh, that sound tight. I like that. And I get up and just be Mack 10. So, however I feel it is that's how I record.
This is the exact moment where the street code collided with the family code. And in the world of high-stakes hip-hop, that's a collision no one survives unscathed. According to public accounts from Mack himself, the tension didn't start with a record deal or a stolen lyric. It started with a third party, specifically Ice Cube's brother-in-law. Reports suggest that Mack felt this individual was overstepping his bounds, allegedly inserting himself into business matters where he didn't belong. Mack 10, a man raised on the rigid rules of Inglewood, reportedly tried to handle it the right way first. He claims he approached Cube multiple times to resolve the disrespect quietly, but when you're dealing with family, the math changes. The situation eventually hit a boiling point. Allegedly, a confrontation occurred between Mack's crew and the brother-in-law. While Mack is adamant that Cube was never physically touched, the atmosphere was poisoned. Sources suggest the real death knell for Westside Connection was the fact that Cube's wife reportedly witnessed the aggression. In that moment, it ceased to be a rap beef and became a household ultimatum. Mack 10 refused to apologize for what he saw as standing his ground. Cube, on the other hand, reportedly viewed the incident as a line cross that could never be uncrossed. This wasn't just the end of a group, it was the end of a brotherhood. And as the Westside Connection ship sank, Mack was left to navigate a storm that was about to get even more personal.
King T from the West Coast. And somebody said, yo, Cube dissed you on this song. So we playing the song, and I'm listening. I'm like, damn, this to me. And King T was like, nah, he ain't diss you. He ain't diss you. I'm like, this. So that brother kind of saved my life.
Fat Joe.
Fat Joe saved my life.
What do you mean?
Mack 10 and them was like, man, what you looking at, homie? And he was like, man, I'm from Chicago. We looking in the eye. And then, man, from that point, I know Mack 10, homie, went and got they thing.
While the collapse of Westside Connection felt like a professional earthquake, the tremors in Mack's personal life were about to bring the whole building down. This is the era where the gold crown of the West Coast began to lose its shine under the glare of intense legal scrutiny. The union between Mack 10 and T-Boz was initially viewed as a hip-hop fairy tale, a merger of West Coast grit and R&B royalty. But behind the closed doors of their suburban life, the situation was reportedly deteriorating at an alarming rate. According to public court filings, the narrative shifted from a power couple to a legal battleground. Reports indicate that T-Boz sought a restraining order, alleging a pattern of behavior that left her in fear for her safety. In the court of public opinion, these weren't just accusations, they were career-ending labels. For a man whose entire brand was built on realness and being an enforcer, being labeled as an aggressor in his own home was a pivot the fans weren't ready for. Mack 10 has consistently denied these claims, suggesting the marriage had essentially ended long before the legal fireworks began. He reportedly felt that the public was only being fed a curated, one-sided version of the truth designed to vilify him. The fallout was immediate. When you lose your group, your best friend, and your public reputation in the span of a few months, the momentum doesn't just slow down, it hits a wall. Industry insiders speculate that radio stations and promoters began to distance themselves, not out of a lack of talent, but out of a fear of the controversy. Mack 10 was finding out the hard way that in the new millennium, your street cred couldn't protect you from a PR nightmare.
You know, we from the West Coast on the East Side, true.
Once again, it's Mack 10, the gold crown holder.
To truly grasp why Mack 10 refused to back down, even when it cost him everything, you have to understand the soil he grew up in. We aren't talking about a studio gangster or someone who adopted a persona to sell records. In the heart of Inglewood, specifically on Queen Street, the street code wasn't a choice, it was a survival manual. During the late 80s and early 90s, the crack epidemic turned his neighborhood into what he described as a non-stop freeway of chaos. Reports from that era describe a level of violence that most people only see in movies. Automatic weapons like AK-47s became the background noise of his youth. For Mack, the NFL was supposed to be the ticket out. He was a standout athlete, a green letterman at Inglewood High, but the pull of the pavement was stronger than the pull of the gridiron. When he famously rapped about giving up sports to Slang Keys and blaming it on his knees, it wasn't just a clever bar, it was a confession of a life-altering pivot. This authentic upbringing is why he clicked so instantly with legends like Eazy-E and later Ice Cube. They recognized a real one because they saw the same survival instincts in his eyes. But that same unwavering loyalty to the streets is exactly what made his transition to the corporate world of New Hollywood and major label politics so turbulent. Mack 10 operated on a frequency of ride or die, but he soon realized that in a world of contracts and public relations, being too real can sometimes be your biggest liability.
The transition from being the man in front of the lens to the architect behind the curtain wasn't a retreat. It was a tactical repositioning that redefined what success looks like after the spotlight fades. To the casual observer, the silence from Mack 10 during the late 2000s looked like a defeat. But in the high-stakes game of longevity, silence is often where the real work happens. While his peers were allegedly struggling to maintain their lifestyles by chasing trends that no longer fit their age or energy, Mack was reportedly studying the infrastructure of the live music industry. He recognized a shifting landscape where physical sales were evaporating and the true leverage remained in the hands of those who controlled the stage. This pivot into concert promotion required a complete stripping away of the ego that usually defines a platinum-selling artist. Imagine walking into a venue, not as the star everyone is waiting for, but as the executive ensuring the lighting rigs are secure and the contracts are signed. Sources suggest this era of his life was about mastering the unsexy side of the business, the logistics, the insurance, and the venue relations. By the time he was facilitating major tours for the likes of Lil Wayne and Cardi B, he had built a reputation that was arguably more durable than his rap career because it was rooted in reliability rather than just rhythm. This wasn't about being the enforcer of the West Side anymore. It was about being the enforcer of the bottom line. There is a profound irony in how the public perceives a collapse. We often equate a lack of social media noise or chart presence with a lack of progress, yet Mack 10 was quietly insulating himself from the very volatility that had previously threatened his livelihood. His refusal to sell his real estate during the 2008 housing crisis is a testament to a level of discipline rarely seen in the fast money world of hip-hop. Reportedly, he understood that wealth isn't about what you make, but what you keep. By holding on to his assets and his 100% publishing rights, he ensured that every time a classic Westside Connection track is played in a movie or a club, he remains the primary beneficiary of his own history. This era of reflection eventually led back to the booth, but the motivation had shifted from necessity to legacy. When he released Red Print, it wasn't a desperate grab for a TikTok hit, it was a statement of existence. He was no longer rapping to escape the hood or to satisfy a label's quarterly projections. He was rapping as a man who had navigated the peak of fame, survived the valley of scandal, and emerged with his autonomy intact. Watching him transition into a little league coach and a family-oriented mentor provides the ultimate contrast to the Queen Street origins that defined his early years. It suggests a rare evolution where the street-hardened youth eventually finds the peace that usually eludes those in his position. The cultural fallout of the Mack 10 story is a reminder that the industry can be a meat grinder for those who stay stagnant. Mack's story is unique because he didn't try to fight the change, he became it. He stood his ground during the fallout with Cube, faced the public scrutiny of his personal life, and instead of crumbling under the weight of the has-been label, he built a framework that allowed him to thrive in the shadows. His journey serves as a blueprint for the modern artist, a lesson that your first act doesn't have to define your finale. He went from being a soldier in a rap war to a general in a business empire, proving that the most powerful move you can make is to own your narrative, your mistakes, and your future. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more juicy celebrity chaos, betrayals, and stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know. See you in the next one.